Today we're going to talk quickly about simplifying ratios. Sometimes when you're given a ratio, you are not given the ratio in simplest form. Now it is almost always going to be easier when you are not given your ratio in simplest form if you start by simplifying it. So here we are given a ratio of red marbles to blue marbles, and it says the ratio of red marbles to blue marbles is 8 to 12. And they haven't asked us to do anything with this problem, but whatever work we're going to have to do, it is usually going to be easier if we can start by simplifying our ratio. We can write the ratio out as 8 to 12. We could also write it out as 8 to 12, or we could write it in fraction form as 8 to 12. Regardless, what we're looking for is a common divisor, a number that all the numbers in our ratio can be divided by. And sometimes that's really easy to see, and sometimes it's not as obvious. So in this case, if we look, the 8 and the 12, most of you can see that they're both divisible by 4. And that's awesome. If you can't see that right away, my recommendation is for you to make a factor tree. So I'm going to go ahead and make a factor tree for the 8 and another factor tree for the 12. Now, when you're making your factor trees, it doesn't matter where you start. So I know that 8 is 2 times 4. I could say 4 times 2. That doesn't matter. You don't want to start with 1 times anything because that doesn't really help you with your factor tree. So I've broken my 8 into 2 times 4. Now my 2 is prime. I can't factor that any further. So I'm going to go ahead and circle that as a prime number. But my 4 is not prime. 4 is still divisible by another number other than 1. I can break my 4 down as 2 times 2. So the prime factors of 8 are 2, 2, and 2. I'm going to do the same for my 12. Now for the 12, I could start with either 6 times 2 or 3 times 4. Truthfully, if you're going to factor down into prime numbers, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to factor this into 2 times 6, and this one into 2 times 3. And now my prime factors of 12 are 2, 2, and 3. So I'm seeing that I have 2 sets of 2's in the 8 and 2 sets of 2's in the 12. So I'm seeing some common factors. And when you're simplifying your ratios, you can simplify in multiple steps or you can simplify in one step. For this one, I'm going to simplify in multiple steps just because I think that's what a lot of you are doing. So starting here with my ratio of 8 to 12, I'm going to divide my 8 by 2 and my 12 by 2. I know they're both divisible by 2 because looking at my factor trees, I had 2 in each of them. Now I have 4 to 6. Remember, anything that you divide one number in your ratio by, you have to divide all the numbers in the ratio by in order to keep it equivalent. Now I know that the 4 and the 6 are also both divisible by 2, so I'm going to go ahead and do another step of dividing both of them by 2 again. Now I have my ratio of 2 to 3. That is simplest form because 2 and 3 do not have a common divisor other than 1. So 2 and 3 are, the ratio of 2 to 3 is simplest form of the ratio of 8 to 12. I wanted to do another example that's a little bit harder. So here we have the ratio 24 to 72. And it's not very obvious what the greatest common divisor would be of 24 and 72. But if you want to, remember, you can do this in as many steps as you want. So you could find the factor tree and find all of their equivalent factors. This isn't working. But instead what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in a bunch of different steps. So I know 24 and 72 are both divisible by 2 because they're both even numbers. They're ending in 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8. So they're both even numbers. So I'm just going to start by dividing them both by 2. And I get 12 to 36. Another set of 2 even numbers because they're ending in 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8. So they're divisible by 2. Now I get 6 to 18. Another set of even numbers that are again going to be divisible by 2. So now I have 3 to 9. And I know that 9 is actually divisible by 3, and 3 is obviously divisible by 3 also. So lastly, I'm just going to do 3 times 3. I'm going to divide both of my terms of my ratio by 3, excuse me. So my ratio of 24 to 72 actually simplifies all the way down into 1 to 3. I could have done that in one step if I had made my factor trees. I could have looked 24 to 72. And if I multiply everything I divided by, I'll get my greatest common divisor. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 3 is 24. It turns out that both of my original terms were divisible by 24, giving me the ratio of 1 to 3. It doesn't matter how many steps it takes you, you want to get your ratios in simplest form. If you start by getting your ratio into simplest form, it is always going to be easier to deal with. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you found it helpful.